Okay, I have to tell you this before we get started. We used to have in my house, we had a podium something like this made out of wood, and had this thick book about this big. Merriam-Webster Dictionary. So every time I go to my parents and I'd say, you know, you're writing a paper in school or whatever, I say, you know, how do you spell this or that? You know what the answer was?
Look it up.
Yeah, look it up. The book's over there. Look it up. The book's over there. You have no idea how frustrating that was. But, like so many things in our life, years later, right, I began to appreciate the fact that they didn't just give me those answers. Because in so many other ways then, not only did I understand more vocabulary, let's say, but I also understood that I didn't have to know everything. That I could use resources, whether it was a book, whether now we have Google, or whether it's just another person who has an expertise or an understanding that I don't have, it was okay. It was all right to do that. Because as we so often remind ourselves here, none of us are an island. None of us are completely self-contained in that we're separate from everybody else on earth. I mean, think about it. Very few of us and very few people you really hear about actually live on their own. Completely self-contained, right? We need at least electricity. You need somebody to grow your food. You need somebody to sell it. You need someone to build a house. Whatever it is, we are just inherently codependent, let's say, right, in a good way with other people, right? How can I do everything myself? I mean, how could I do this by myself? Think about it. I couldn't do this by myself. That's the importance of having the group here. The more of us who are doing this, the faster we change the planet. And remember, what goes around comes around. Because as we're about to affirm here in a moment, consciousness is everything. So then the more conscious I am of my need, and not in a negative way, but the necessity of me to be unified with all of you, so that I'm unified with every aspect of myself, then each one of us are doing the same thing. We all have that spiritual need to be connected to the soul of every person on earth. Because they're part of my soul, right? Just like the cells of my body. Every human being is a part of me. Every human being that you see is a part of you. And that's why the more we raise our consciousness and the more we come to see that bigger picture, then the easier it will be for us to live a life that we all want to live. That our heart and soul are telling us that we're supposed to live. Peace, harmony, blessing in every way. Is that what you're looking for? Yes or no? Okay. How many of you are brand new? I guess I forgot that. I was so excited. Great. Okay. We have a few new people. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. It's okay. We don't bite. She said, I don't know if I want to raise my hand. What's going to happen next? Come, you have to be called. No, I'm just kidding. All right? Okay, never mind. We have to go on here. Otherwise, I'll get off topic completely. So what we're going to do is we're going to affirm our consciousness with this affirmation, because the more we're going to shift our thinking, the more our life is going to be better. Because here we're shifting everything in a higher and a higher degree, a more unified thing. If you talk about every religion on earth or spirituality, at some point says the ultimate is love your neighbor as yourself. And what does that really mean? To be truly conscious that every person has an impact on me. That what I do out there will have an impact on me sometime. It may not happen in my time frame, but it's going to happen. Because there is that perfect law of cause and effect. So as we raise our consciousness, as we elevate the things that we do and how we see the world, then we're going to change our life. So if I can ask you together, we're just going to affirm, so we engrave in our mind more and more of the truth. And as we do that, we're going to push more and more of the falsehood and the darkness. So together, consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And for those of you who are new, this is one of our favorite things to do in the morning. We're going to stand up and we're going to greet each other, warmly, friendly, with love and blessings. So there was a movie, some of you may have seen it years and years ago, with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, All of Me. Okay? If not, just picture the movie, this part with me. So there's this one scene, the gist of it is, Lily Tomlin is this very wealthy woman she's about to pass, and she's becoming very spiritual at the end of her life, and she wants to live on. So she finds this guy who's going to take her soul and put her soul in the body of this young girl. Well, there's a big mess up, and what happens basically is her soul goes into the body of Steve Martin. Okay, so the scene that I remember that I'm referring to is the first time, that he realizes, like he looks in a mirror and he sees like her face kind of thing. So he knows it's his body, but her soul is also inside. So now they're trying to decide what to do, because obviously he doesn't like the idea, and she's sorry she got in the wrong body. So he wants to walk this way, and she's trying to go this way. So it's hysterical. If you remember Steve Martin, he's trying to go this way, and one leg's not going, and he's pulled in this different direction like this. And I realized that's how we are often. Because what is it? It's chaos. Right? I mean, think about it. He wants to go one direction. She wants to go a different direction, but they're working with the same body. So it's chaos. So when you and I face the chaos that we face, why is it chaos? Why don't we call it harmony and order? Because when we say harmony and order, what are we really saying? I want to do something, and I'm going in that direction. So then what's chaos? Either I'm not sure which direction to go, because there's two different directions, or I'm being pulled in two different directions, or I'm not clearly seeing. I thought the system went this way, but now it looks like it's working in a different way. So in essence, every form of chaos is when things look like there's two different pathways. So that's what we want to now start looking at. Because as we sit here, unless you're going to tell me, right, you have another soul inside you besides yours. I'm just checking to see who's going, maybe, okay. So then, but we are pulled in two different directions. Now we want to understand, what are those two different directions? We are pulled according to the soul, wants to go in one direction, and as we live now, our body, in many ways, wants to go in another direction. So like these two characters in the movie, one direction, one the other, we have those things. Our body, our physicality, our desire for the physical material things pushing us in one direction, and our soul, the desire for the true light and peace and harmony of the Creator, wants to go in another direction. Sometimes they're aligned, sometimes they're not. When they're not, that's when we decide it's chaos. That's when we find ourselves in challenges. Because if we were just like God all the time, if we could see clearly the big picture of things, where would we ever have discord? Nothing would bother us. So then the fact that we have challenges, obstacles, and we're not yet 100% fulfilled, we got to realize we're being pulled in two different directions. Was it meant to be that way? No. When our soul left the world before physicality, what we call the world before the physical universe, when we existed in the endless world, the soul, which is pure and perfect, knows everything. It knows we came in this world just to act with love, kindness, and compassion all the time. And that as we would do that, what would we experience all the time? If we're always putting out love, kindness, and compassion, what has to come back? Love, kindness, and compassion, all the good things. So we knew that. Our soul still knows that. That's why our soul is still pushing us in that direction. But what happened to the body? How many of you drove here? Great. So let's think of it that way. You got in the car, like the soul getting in the body. Then ideally, because you all got here, right, you must have told the car, the body, where to go. And it followed. So when we first came out of the endless world, our body was just meant to be a vehicle to carry our soul through this world. To be able to manifest the acts of love, kindness, and compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, generosity, and humility, all the godlike behaviors. That's what the body was meant to be. Just like the car, it's just meant to follow our direction. Unfortunately, because we have free will, and we needed to have free will, when we came into this physical world as, metaphorically, Adam and Eve, we had a choice, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Sadly, what did we do? We gave in with the help of what we call here the opponent, that negative voice in our head that's taunting us to do the reactive, self-centered behavior. We gave into it. So then what happened? Did we in any way defect the soul? Did we in any way defect the light of the Creator that's inside of us? You can't. You cannot defect God. So if God gave us a piece of itself that's our image and likeness, you can't defect that. But, like we often speak about, with this light here, can I put a heavy blanket over the light and make the light appear to disappear? But I'm not defecting the light. So when we gave in to what's called the tree of knowledge, the physical material, we then caused our body to go in a different direction. The desire to receive for itself alone. I mean, think about it. When we're angry, jealous, fearful, egotistical, are we in any way, shape, or form sharing our light and our blessing with other people? No. So then, who are we behaving in those ways for? To whose benefit? Ourself. When I get angry, it's for my own benefit. When I get sad, it's for my own benefit. I'm trying to salve myself for myself. Therefore, we have the two directions. So we've messed up the system. But what we learn here, as we affirm, if consciousness is everything, and if I messed up the system, then what power do I also have? The power to fix it. But that's where the opponent in my head jumps in and says, oh no, you can't fix it. How can you do it? Well, look at that opponent, and I tell all my students, you must speak to the opponent. It's speaking to you. You hear that voice in your head says, oh, Chaim, you messed it all up. What are you going to do now? You can't fix it. So I tell people, answer back. I say, yeah, of course I can. If I can mess it up, I can mess it back. What do you want to go? Right? That's it. That's it. How can I have the power to make a mess and not clean it up? There's no way. Unless that opponent in my head tells me and I agree. That's the only thing. Because part of the body consciousness is my five senses. And as you go to a magic show, or you see some of these people called illusionists, what are they doing with your five senses? They're fooling, they're manipulating you. So you think if a magician or an illusionist can manipulate your five senses to see things that aren't there, or to not see things that are there, you don't think that that invisible, metaphysical opponent in our own head can't do the same thing? Of course it can. It knows us better than often we think we know ourselves. So it can put in that doubt. It can make us see, oh, look at the chaos. Yes, Chaim, you created the chaos. You created the difficulty. But you don't have the ability to fix it. If I believe it, then I can't fix it. When I talk back to that opponent and I tell them, wait a second, if God gave me the power that I misused to mess it up, then I can now use that same power God gave me to put it back into harmony and order. Because which is the original? The chaos or the order? The darkness or the light? Which is original? The light. God. God's light is the original. It's all powerful. So the whole beauty, the power of Kabbalah is to teach us how to cleanse the body aspect from all of its selfishness, from its self-centeredness, so that the body just does the bidding of the soul. It's a very interesting story in the Bible. Moses. You all heard of Moses? Right? We read the 5 books of Moses. Right? So whether you believe or not, let's just go with the concept. Right? Because nobody here says you have to believe what we say. In fact, almost the opposite. Don't believe anything we say, but just don't discard it or dismiss it automatically. Learn, apply, see how it works for you. So there's a story of Moses is writing the 5 books of Moses. How did he write it? God told him what to say. God dictated, Moses wrote. So there's a very interesting verse in the Bible. Moses writes, Moses is the most humble man. Exactly, kind of a paradox, no? If you or I wrote a book and it said, I am the most humble person on earth, what would they all say about us? What a big ego. How could you say you're the most humble person? But Moses, and this is the lesson for us, because Moses was that pure vehicle for the light of his soul. He had no negativity, no self-centeredness. So in essence, when the Creator dictated, write, Moses is the most humble man, his hand just wrote. Just like you and I. Do you have to consciously, second by second, tell your feet how to move? Do you have to tell your arms how to move? No. You think and the body follows. That's the natural state. Heaven forbid a person is sick, then they have difficulty. They think one thing, but the body doesn't follow. Right? They want to move the right hand, but the left hand goes. Or they want to move the right foot, but the left foot goes. Things like that are ailments. It's not the way it's supposed to be. What's supposed to be is whatever the brain says, the body follows through. So then how much more the soul? Our work is to cleanse the body. We don't have to change the soul. We can connect ourselves stronger to the soul and let it draw through the body to cleanse the body of its negativity, so the body just carries the soul and does all the soul things, and that's what heaven on earth is made of, when we're all living that 100%. So then what's it really about? It's not about transforming the soul. It's about transforming the body. So again, you go back to the Bible, because Kabbalistically, the Bible is just a cosmic code or a guidebook for life. But you have to be able to interpret it and understand it that way. Because if you read it just literally, we're lost. We're lost. I mean, if you read the Bible literally, the 5 books of Moses, then you can justify rape, robbery, murder, thievery, all kinds of bad stuff. But if you understand it Kabbalistically, then you pierce through that and you see the true lessons for us. So, you've all heard of the story of the splitting of the Red Sea, yes? Think about that transformation. You have water that in essence transformed to dry ground. Right? You want to say split, however you want to look at it, but in simple terms, we see the body of water. You can't really walk through the water very well, but for the Israelites, the water split, now it turned into dry ground. And they walked. Then the Egyptians came up, and what? Water was water. And they drowned. So what we learn is the Israelites represent you and I, who are making the effort to transform ourselves. They transformed their body consciousness so that in essence what looked like trouble, chaos, that sea that they couldn't cross, suddenly became dry ground and they were able to cross. Like you and I. Have you never solved a problem in your life? Wait a second. Haven't you solved at least one problem in your life? Exactly. So what did you do? You transformed something. Especially since you've been learning Kabbalah, you made a true lasting transformation. Because sometimes we had answers years and years ago that was really temporary, but now we're learning to make real transformation. So you look back on yourself and say, yes, I used to be more angry than I am now. I used to be more jealous than I am now. Progress is progress. So you're making transformation. So when the Israelites cross, they represent for us our transformation. From the self-centered, giving into the body, to the sharing, the outward center, helping and sharing with other people, the soul consciousness. The Egyptians represented people who didn't transform that thing we call desire to receive for the self alone, the body consciousness. And that's why they drowned. That's why they drowned. But look what happened. The same experience, the same Red Sea. For one was good, for one was bad. That's why we learn here, it's not to judge other people, because we don't know what they're going through and we don't know what they're going to be. I mean, if you look at us representing the Israelites up to that point, we weren't always the best. We get to the Red Sea, we're already complaining. But then we made enough transformation to split the sea and go through. And that's what we're learning here, how to make that transformation so nothing blocks us. The only thing that can stop us is one simple thing: our own lack of consciousness, or our giving our consciousness away to that opponent in our head. That's the only thing that can stop us, is not believing. But like it keeps saying, let's go back 1 second, because I promised you on Facebook. People will often come to me, I'm sure all of us, I've heard it from students. You know, you're learning this Kabbalah stuff, but I saw you do X, Y, Z. Right? You're not practicing what you preach. You're not walking the walk. You're not living what you're talking about. Well, you know what? Like I told you on Facebook, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. If we hold the right consciousness. Because again, consciousness is everything. So think of what we've just been saying now. if the body wants to go in one direction and the soul wants to go in the other direction. So is it then not true that meanwhile we're not always walking the walk and we're not always practicing what we preach? Not always, but that's not a bad thing. It's part of our spiritual transformation. Again, go back. That's what 40 years in the desert. Right? You and I, the Israelites. We're in Egypt. We're in slavery and bondage to what? Our body consciousness. We decide that's not enough. I want to change. So we say, God, help us. And remember, this is metaphorical. Help us. So what does he do? He sends Moses. He gets the 10 plagues. We get out. We're facing the Red Sea. What do we do at the Red Sea? We complain. Then we wake up and we say, no, no, no. Transformation. How did they split the Red Sea? Some of you know. Moses used the 72 names. That which we use every week. He used the light of the Creator through the 72 names and water split. Not only that, but there's a man, maybe you don't know this story, Nachshon. He was one of the leaders of the 12 tribes. When Moses used the 72 names and the water split, not everybody saw it. Not everybody saw it. Some people still caught up in a level of their body consciousness. They didn't see the water split. So one man decided he was just going to take the risk because he knew his 5 senses weren't always telling him the truth. And he had seen enough and had transformed enough to believe in the light of the Creator and believe that Moses was a pure channel of that light. That we can all become like that as we remove the negativity from our body consciousness. Our body will follow the soul and we will be manifestly those pure and perfect beings of light. So what did Nachshon do? He said, no, I believe in the power of the Creator. I know Moses split the water. If I don't see it, then it's my limitation. And he walked right into the ocean, right into the sea. And he says, first the water comes up to his ankle, he keeps going. Then it comes up to his knees, still not split. He keeps going, it's up to his waist, he keeps going. He literally walked into this ocean, this sea, till it covered his nose. The moment it covered his nose, then the water split. For us, think about it. And I remember it was a few years back when I started to think about why did it have to wait to the nose? And of course me, because I teach Kabbalah, I'm trying to think of all the if you're familiar with the Sfirot, I'm trying to think of all the real details. And then I realized one day when I got in a pool of water, I realized what happens between the water here above your mouth versus above your nose. Right? If the water's at your mouth, but your nose is still above the water, you could breathe. So what's the big deal? Right? Where's the faith? Where's the being willing to take a risk for the sake of my soul? But the moment we're willing to go over our nose, that's the risk. Because at that moment, physically, you can't breathe. So the moment Nachshon went past his level of consciousness with certainty in the light, then the illusion split. Then the problem disappeared, and he was able to walk through it. So it's got to be the same with us. So here, these 40 years in the desert, we're walking, right? You know how long it would probably take us if we really, now today, we went out there and we tried to just go the distance from the land of Egypt to the land of Israel? You could probably do it in less than 6 months, even a year at slow pace. 40 years. Why did we wander 40 years to go from Egypt to Israel? To the, quote, promised land. Why? Because we weren't able during that time to live 100%, but we were in the process. And that's why I share with you the fact that people don't always practice what they preach is not a bad thing for people like us. For some people out there, yes, because they're not even making the effort. Our work is to keep talking the talk, keep understanding, keep learning, and keep telling other people about this, and then guide ourselves to walk it more and more. That's the key. So our objective in the 40 years in the desert didn't change. Our objective was still to go out of slavery and bondage to the body consciousness, to reach the promised land of peace and harmony and all the blessings. So just the fact we couldn't always go in a straight direction doesn't mean we were bad people. It meant that we were in the process of transformation. And every time we came upon a challenge, another opportunity to transform. Every time you face some chaos in your life, opportunity to transform what we created, the chaos, back into what was originally harmony and order. All the blessing. That's all the challenge is. Think about it. No, what would happen? You ever open up, okay, let's see. Jigsaw puzzles. Let's stick with that. You ever do a jigsaw puzzle? Yes? up to a point, what's the fun of a jigsaw puzzle? Putting it together, right? Like a crossword puzzle or any puzzle. The fun is in the challenge of putting it together or fixing it or solving it, yes? So what would happen if you opened up a 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, and as you open the box, all you have to do is take it out and unfold it like a sheet? I mean, think about it. You're all excited. 10,000 pieces. I've been real good. I did the 5,000 piece. Now I'm going to 10,000 pieces. And you open up the box. You follow, and you just open it like a sheet. It's already done for you. Do you now feel excited and happy? No, you feel let down. Paradoxically, why are you let down? Because it's already done for you. In that challenge is the joy. In the solving the challenge is the joy. So it's the same in our life. Challenges are our opportunity to express all of our godlike nature and therefore receive all the blessings from that godlike nature. But we have to solve it. You can't look to your neighbors, you can't look to your friends, you can't look to the other people. Nobody. I mean, how many times has that happened to you? You have a difficulty, you have a fight or an argument with somebody, right? And you're arguing back and forth, and finally they just look at you and say, you know what, okay, you're right. Are you really satisfied? I mean, let's be honest. Are you satisfied? They told you you're right. Are you happy? No, because of course the opponent's going to tell, they don't really believe it. They're just saying it to get rid of you. They just want you to go away, right? Oh, you're right. Shoo, shoo, right? So you don't feel happy, but they told you you're right. All right? A big smile. Yeah, you're right. You follow it? It's not satisfying. What's the only way we're going to be satisfied is when we've overcome the challenge to express our light nature. Then it doesn't matter they think you're right or not. Because everything is about our behavior, our actions, not theirs. Not theirs. That's what the opponent keeps telling us. You know, when they'll ask forgiveness, then you'll forgive. Meanwhile, who's suffering? Who's suffering with that lack of forgiveness? Me. If I'm holding resentment to somebody, I suffer with it. But I'll rationalize it by telling myself, you know, if they'll come to apologize, of course, I'll forgive them 100%. Meanwhile, they're not going to come to apologize, and I'm suffering. That's pretty foolish, isn't it? Because I can alleviate my suffering by already just forgiving them. I can wish them well, I can pray for them, or as we call it, I can send them light. I'll scan the 72 names, the Zohar, and I'll send them light. I forgive you for what you did, and I apologize for whatever I may have done. Now I continue to walk in my life in peace. I continue that journey with more peace and harmony. And again, like attracts like. So if I hold resentment, heaven forbid, I'm going to attract more things to be resentful towards. If I can forgive and I can transform my resentment to forgiveness and compassion, then what am I going to attract? Forgiveness and compassion, more light. So it's always to my benefit, to our benefit, to just be the light being. That's our work. But it's a lot of effort. Right? Because we've got to face the Red Sea, we've got to look at the challenges, and we've got to stop looking for other people to solve my problems for me. Like we said in the beginning, funny, that's how it works out. We can use a dictionary. We can use the tools. That's why we're here in the Kabbalah Center, learning the tools of the light to be able to achieve our 100%. But we still have to do the work. We still have to do the walk. We have to walk more of the talk. That's why it's important to have the objective. Yes, I want to achieve my 100%. I want to manifest all that the Creator made me to be, and then I start walking the walk. You follow? So in that way, it's important to have the objective. So the fact that right now I'm not 100% manifest is not a bad thing. So yes, even as a Kabbalah teacher, I'm not always living Kabbalah. Just ask my kids. Ask my wife. Okay, but our objective is, and we're moving in that direction, and that's the example. I mean, think about what would happen if a teacher, because I want to set myself aside, imagine if you had a Kabbalah teacher that really just walked in the first time you came here to the center and really was just perfect, absolutely perfect in every way, shape, or form, and now trying to tell you, yes, if you want to be good and you want to be perfect, then do this and this and this and this. It's like, imagine you see one of these self-help books of how to achieve something, and the author has 12 PhDs. I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I'd look at that and say, you know, I don't have 12 PhDs. So if you have to have 12 PhDs to apply this system, it's not going to work for me. But if you find somebody who started with some difficulty in their life, or they didn't have the college education, and yet they became successful, or they achieved something in their life, then they say, this is how you do it. Now I can relate. Now I can relate, because if they can do it, then I can do it. If a person went from in the darkness and the chaos to order and harmony and light, then I can do it too, because I know I'm also here and there in the darkness and I have my chaos. You follow? But if somebody got up and said, no, I'm already perfect, and you could really see they were like pure angels. I mean, really? I don't know about you, maybe not all of you, but I know for me it'd be very disheartening. How can I expect to be there? I'm not there yet. But if I see they went, you follow, from the darkness to the light, now I can relate. And that's the example. So it's not bad to not be your 100%. Just make sure you're doing more and more every day. Make sure you're setting the example, right? Which is probably how all of us get here in the first place. You see somebody who's applying Kabbalah and you see change in their life. You see that, you know, I had somebody just this last week when I met one of the students, and she's telling me, you know how I know I changed? She says, because my children told me that I'm acting differently. That's a great sign. When your relatives who know you very well see the change in you, then you know you made real change. Because friends or acquaintances or whatever, they don't see you that often. So they may or may not say it, they may have other agendas, etc. But people who are close to you who really see the change, that's really something. That's really something. Then you know that you've made strides. And that's all we're here to do, is inspire people to make those strides, to make those changes. What stops us? Two things. And then I will finish with these. One is, we have to keep in our mind that the light of the Creator is the only source of lasting fulfillment. It's the only power in the universe. Even when we think in our world there's light and darkness and good and bad, etc. No, there's not. There's only the one force of energy called the light of the Creator. Period. Because if there are two forces, then everything is already lost. Then chaos would have to be eternal, if there were two equal but opposite forces. But if now we're talking and we're understanding, there's only one force, the light of the Creator. It is the only source of lasting fulfillment. But, remember the free will? If I can use it in a reactive, negative way, it doesn't change the light. It just means temporarily I create that chaos. Using the light of the Creator, I created chaos. Then I can use in a proactive way the light of the Creator to take away the chaos. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that I already have all the light in me. I am that pure and perfect being of light, and my work is to express more and more of it. But where I've also been reactive, where I also see challenges, where I've also see darkness in my life, the darkness isn't there. It's the light that I can't see. And how does that come about? Because of the other aspect. It says in the Bible, which we believe is encoded with Kabbalistic secrets, it says the last enemy of us, the spiritual people, is called Amalek. And Amalek represents doubt. And when you read the first time we see in the Bible this group called Amalek attacking us, what did we say? It's not that they woke up one day and said, look, let's go attack these spiritual people. No, read what it says. After we saw the splitting of the Red Sea, after we got manna from heaven, we weren't yet 100%, so that means we still had a question. And what does the Bible say the question was? Is God with us or not? And immediately it says, and then came Amalek. So let's think about it Kabbalistically. If a person has a doubt that the light is infinite, then of course all bets are off. If a person's not sure if the infinite light exists in this spot in their life, is it because the light doesn't exist there or they don't see it? Because think, what does the word infinite mean? No end. That means everywhere you go, the infinite light is available. If we don't see it, it's our lack. Like those magic shows. If you can't figure it out, it's our lack, right? We didn't study, we didn't see it, our five senses bothering us, etc. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. So even in the greatest darkness in your life, the light of the Creator exists 100%. Don't give in to the illusion that it's not there. Work to break through the illusion. Work to change the anger, the jealousy, the greed, all the reactive behaviors to be able to have eyes that see the light, which then has all the solution. Because, like the old saying goes, if a person feels God is far away, who moved? There's nowhere for God to move. If God is infinite, it fills every space we can call space. You follow? So there's no place to move. So then, if a person feels distant from the Creator, or the Creator's not there, it's our limitations. It's a very nice Kabbalistic story from the Middle Ages. This man was a nice man, but had nothing but problems in his life. And he couldn't figure out why he had so many problems in his life. So he goes to his teacher, the great Baal Shem Tov, if you want to look him up. He's a great Kabbalist in the 17th century. And he tells this man who's coming to him, instead of just giving him the answer, remember the dictionary? He says, I'll tell you where to go to find the answer. So he says, I want you to go on this journey and go to this town and ask about this person, Joe Smith, let's say. So he takes a 3-day journey, he goes to the town, he starts asking people, do you know this guy Joe Smith? And everyone's thinking, no, doesn't sound familiar, nobody that I know. So he goes through the town until he's asking every person he can find. Finally he comes upon this very, very elderly man, and he says, sir, I'm looking for a guy named Joe Smith. And the man spits, Joe Smith, He says, what about it? He says, no, Joe Smith, thank God, he's dead. He's dead years already. He says, why are you so bad? He says, you have no idea how terrible and rotten this guy Joe Smith was. Any chance he had to do bad to somebody, he did bad to somebody. So the guy's a little disheartened, right? His teacher, the great Kabbalist, told him, go find this man, right, to find out why he's got so many troubles. Now the guy's dead. And he finds out he was a terrible person. He goes back to his teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, and he tells him the story. He says, I went there, I looked, he says, and everybody's, this one man was the only one who remembered him, said he was a rotten man. He says, what does that have to do with my troubles? And the Baal Shem Tov looked at him and said, because you were Joe Smith in a past life. So cause and effect transcends this thing we call death. We carry with us. That's why if you look back in your life, there are a lot of things that seem out of place as you grew up. You're a nice person, there's challenges, things like that. So a lot of it comes from a past life, like this with Joe Smith. But the point is, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, it's okay, but understand the point. If I don't see where the light is, if I don't see the solution, if I don't believe there's a solution, it's my limitation, it's not the universe. It's my limitation. So here today, our work is to change ourselves. It's to be like Nachshon, who walked into the ocean even though he didn't see with his eyes that the water had split. But he didn't just do it on what people call blind faith. He did it with spiritual faith. He knew the tools, he had experienced the tools, he used them, and he knew then he had to go through. Because how do you grow, how are you going to increase the good in your life if you don't first have to step into the darkness? Right? If you stay in the light, that's great. But if your 100% is not there yet, then where's the rest of your 100%? It's in the areas of your life where you have challenges, where you're not doing all the sharing, the love, the kindness, and compassion. That's where we can grow. So in order to do that, you have to step first into that darkness. And that's when Amalek will attack. Because there is that thought, I'm walking in the darkness. Is the light really there? And that's where we've got to boost ourselves, and that's what we keep doing here. Boosting our consciousness, raising our consciousness. So I know when I'm facing a challenge, when I'm facing my darkness, I can walk into it. And I can break through because the light is always there, and the light is the source of my fulfillment, not me. I want to be like a Moses or any of the great sages. I want to just channel that light. I want to wield that light and shine it out there. So today is our day to take those risks. Today is our day to start shining the light. Today is the day to say, yes, the light is always with me. And like it says, my job is to be quiet. Quiet down my body consciousness. Quiet down my negativity. And let the light through me with acts of love and kindness and compassion. Let it go out. Let it go out there and split the sea. Let it go in front of me. Like headlights. Why do you turn your headlights on at night? So that it breaks the darkness and you can find the right path to avoid all the obstacles. That's our work. We've got to keep our eye on the objective, and then we've got to walk the path. Because if we don't do both at the same time, it's like I've challenged people before. If you go, let's say in this room, if we empty things out, and I ask you to walk from one door to the other door, but only looking at your feet, put one foot in front of the other, I guarantee you that going from a length like that, you'll be off by a few feet by the time you get there. How do we get to our objective? We look up the objective, and then our feet walk in that direction. So we have to connect ourselves to the light of the Creator, to that pure and perfect system that exists, and then walk the walk. So the fact we're not yet 100%, not a problem. But we want to make sure that we see our goal and we're walking that way. Because as each and every one of us lead, like Moses led, we followed, and each one following the other. So each of us today have an opportunity to create inspiration, enthusiasm, motivation for people around us who see us transform a piece of our darkness to light, a piece of our chaos to order. Then they're also going to be inspired to do the same thing. And that's how, as we continue and continue and continue, our group together, the people who are watching on Facebook Live, just this group, we may be a small portion of the world's population, but as we will channel the light of the Creator reaches every human being on earth. And we, in a positive way, can affect every human being on the planet. We, as we'll make this transformation, as we'll step into the light and act more like the light and practice more walking the walk that we keep talking about as our objective, we're going to change the planet, we're going to bring peace and harmony to the world, and we will live our heaven on earth. God bless.